final movie for today's show. And a movie that actually isn't out just yet. As of right now, I believe it's coming out in roughly about 3 weeks from now. Camp Twilight, which is obviously from 2020. So, what is this one about? Well, at the risk of failing to graduate, there's these 6 students who are forced to go on a weekend camping trip for extra credit, along with a couple of teachers. And they arrive at this place called Camp Twilight, which is, I guess, like a park which has a bit of a history to it, because there's people going missing, getting murdered, and all that kind of stuff. So, I guess I'll start off by saying, look, there's actually quite a few names in the movie that people might be aware of. You know, Felissa Rose is in the movie. In fact, she also co-wrote the movie, I believe. And if you don't know who that is, it's CWD from Sleepaway Camp, Chick with Dick. So, she's in the movie. You've also got Vernon Wells, who I know as the main bad guy from Commando, the guy that Arnold Schwarzenegger fights at the end. You got Linnea Quigley in it. Obviously, you know, that's a well-known name for B movies. And hey, Tracy Lear is in it. I don't know who she is, but I do now.
Oh boy, I was wondering if that was going to be one of our main disputes.
By the way, that one scene where she's talking to, I don't know if it's her husband in the movie, I think it was, or a partner, or whatever it was. But I'm surprised he could keep his eyes up during that conversation.
Well, he is an actor and he probably got paid, so...
What a professional.
I have to say, I'm not big on the whole, shall we say, not necessarily biological trusts. Those look somewhat fake to me. That's just me. I'm not an expert in...
All natural.
Yeah, so maybe it is, but that's not really my type of thing. I sort of enjoyed, like, every time she was on screen. I don't know if the actress has done a bunch of other things. I really don't know. Maybe she has, but it seems to me that the only reason she's in the movie is just so they can have a woman with some nice cleavage going on. Because if I recall, she didn't even have any nude scenes.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I'm glad she's in the movie just for that fact, because if the movie's not great in other areas, at least you've got something else to look at.
Are you saying that Felissa Rose wasn't enough for you?
Actually, when you mention that, I was actually going to say, I'm quite surprised at how milfy she is. I actually did find her somewhat attractive, which I never have in the past, but in this movie I did. So.
Are you saying you didn't find her attractive back in Sleepaway Camp?
Well, no. I mean, she's playing a child, so...
It's a safe answer.
Look, I mean, the only acceptable way to actually say, yes, I did, is if I was a kid at the time when I first saw the movie. So, if you're answering that question from the perspective as when you were a kid, that might be okay to answer, but no.
Yeah, actually, speaking of kids, I did want to give a shout out. Might be a bit strong. I think most of the I don't know how many of those people are actually teens, or I don't know their ages, but the 16 characters. Some of them weren't as good, but I thought all of them did at least competently, so I appreciated that. That one, God, I'm just trying to remember these characters' names. This one named, it looks like Haley Hopkins, and she played sort of like the I don't want to be here, sort of almost emo-ish type character, and I sort of liked her performance. And this other people there too, like Harris Sebastian, who played like the very aggressive, like, hey, you ought to be with me type guy. I hated that character, so he did a good job too. So I'm not sure how much acting history those kids have between them, but I certainly did appreciate what they brought to the movie.
And while we're talking about the younger actors in the movie, I must say the younger girl playing the like child version of Felissa Rose's character didn't look enough like her for me for that to, it didn't quite work for me.
Well, I think the whole sequence was ill-advised anyway, to be honest. Like, just from anytime there's a movie and then like the last 10 minutes is planned on, hey, this is exactly why we did what we did. Like, I get giving us, answers to characters' actions, but it seems like so stereotypical. Like it's like a villain hanging some guy over a shark tank. Now I will tell you my evil plan and why I did it. It just doesn't strike me as the best approach if I was the guy going around killing people.
Yeah. Speaking of that, like some of the shots in the movie, like people are either too close or too far away in certain scenes. Like there's a scene where they throw an axe from really far away.
That's an impressive throw.
Yeah, like if you've ever thrown an axe in real life, you would know that that does not look right.
Have you thrown axes in real life?
Yeah, well, I mean, I lived on a farm, so I could just throw one just for no reason, just because I'm out on board and you've got, equipment like that sitting around. But anyways,
I might be slightly different because I think it's entirely possible in my life I've never actually seen an axe outside of movies. So,
well, there you go. But yeah, like just still on the topic of people being either too close or too far away in certain shots. Like there was that one scene where I can't remember who it was. I think it was someone was trying to hide from the killer in the woods at night. And like they're hiding behind a tree, and to be honest, the killer looks like they're only like 2 meters from them, and I feel like there's no way they would not have seen this person hiding behind that tree, or at least when they leave the tree, they kind of move off, they would have seen that because they're like 2 meters away, and you would have heard them. I don't know. It just seemed odd to me.
Yeah, speaking of another, and this is pretty small, but I noticed there were probably a few, seems like audio mix-ups. I'm pretty sure there's one scene where a character was either screaming or saying something, but all we heard was the background music. We didn't hear the actual vocals. Which, I sort of actually rewound that scene, like, wait, did that actually happen? So, that was interesting. I don't see that very often. But, that's a small thing. It only happened as far as I could tell once.
Yeah. Did you notice there was this one scene with a dead girl? Sorry, I believe she was dead in the chair, and she blinked.
I did not notice that.
I was just so focused on the dead girl because I think in that shot they had both the dead girl and the person behind them or next to them who discovers the body. And I'm guessing most people are focusing on the person that's alive, but I was focusing on the person that was dead. Like, I'm always looking to see, are they moving? How good are they acting dead? And it wasn't even like a really quick blink. It was a really normal blink. So I don't know. Go back and have a look if you got any interest. But that was amusing.
Yeah, I think that character was played by Angela Kluskowski. So, unfortunately, Angela, I'm sorry you made a small mistake.
But look, to be honest, don't worry too much. I mean, I think they spent all their money on the design for the opening credits.
Well, it's probably a combination of the design and the big names they have in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen this in other movies. When a movie that seems like a somewhat modest, and this movie had a pretty decent production. It didn't look like a cheap movie. It had a glossy look to it. But when they have a movie that's not necessarily the highest budget movie, but they have a bunch of actors that people liked 20 years ago. Obviously, the good actors. I like Felissa Rose. I think she does a pretty good job. Her like overly poppy, hey guys, let's have fun.
She was super enthusiastic.
It's like Steve Camp 2.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, people usually aren't that enthusiastic with their roles, and I know that's part of the character, but yeah, she certainly put as much into it as she could, I guess, into her performance. I think, like, we look back on movies from, 80s and stuff, and even if the acting's bad, it's got that great 80s nostalgic vibe to it, and, like, in a movie like this, where the acting could be as equally, not great, you can't really hide it because, or, you don't have that nostalgic aspect to it, and maybe in 30 years from now, people look back on these types of movies and, start to feel different about them. But right now, it's just, those types of things just stand out too much and affect the movie, I think.
Yeah, like, to me, it seems like I see slashes that aren't all that different from this, like, all the time. A lot of the modern day slashes, most of them aren't terrible. They're like okay. They're like middle of the road. There's only a few in recent times that I remember giving like super low ratings to, because I'm a slasher fan. I enjoy slasher movies, and I think this one is still an okay movie. It lacks that special thing that makes it a really good movie, and I definitely think some of like the plot points, like the whole origin of like one of the characters in the movie, just seemed unnecessary, and then the final scene. It's just that character in the gas station. I didn't see the point, to be entirely honest. Like, okay, this character got away, That's, I don't know.
And by the way, how does that girl in the gas station not hear the heels and footsteps, like, before she gets killed? Because it's completely silent.
Yes, that's another. Now maybe she was having hearing problems and. Her hearing aid was low on battery or something.
Yeah.
We don't know her life.
Yeah. Look, I guess the problem here is that it's hard to have a passion project when you've just got so many things in the works, and I think that's the thing here is that, like I said earlier, Felissa Rose co-wrote this movie, and I don't know, she might have wrote a lot of it. I'm not sure, or maybe she only wrote a little bit, but. And I hadn't looked at everyone else involved in the movie, but I looked at what she is involved in more recently. And she's in, like, there's like roughly 30 movies that are either in pre-production or filming or post-production. So movies that she's been involved in that haven't come out yet. And when you're doing that much quantity, clearly what you're putting into each movie is not going to be the best quality. If you look at her list, there's like at least 2 or 3 other movies that are to do with camps. So, let's just write a bunch of cheap camp slashers or camp horror movies, and it feels more like they're making movies based on a formula. And, that's fine. I mean, get whatever money you can, you put it up, you get whatever money you can, you move on to the next one. You probably don't have the time to spend on something, making sure the writing is top notch and all that. But I think that's the main issue with these movies, is that, they try and just pump them out as quick as they can, and that definitely hurts the quality of a movie.
I mean, I don't know, I feel like for whatever budget they had for this movie, they did probably as much as they could. I wasn't a big fan of some of the writing, some of the plot points, but that just happens in modern day slashes. With a lot of modern day slashes, it's either like they do a really good job, or it's like going to be mediocre. And this one, at least to me, just felt more mediocre. I can't imagine remembering almost any of this, in like 5 months. I just don't see it.
No. That was my point. One of my points down here is, like, anyone who watches this, I can't imagine anyone 2 years later saying, "Ooh, time to watch Camp Twilight again." Yeah, I don't see it.
Yeah, so I think for me, despite the things I appreciated in the movie, I'm probably going to give this a below average rating of a 6 out of 10. And, that's not a terrible rating. It did some things I enjoyed. I thought most of the teen actors, were of their past experience. I thought most of them did a pretty okay job. So it's certainly a movie it's not a terrible movie. It's just not a great movie, and it's probably not a good movie. But a 6 out of 10 seems like a pretty fair rating for this.
Yeah, it's I'm going to go with a 4. 4 out of 10. I've certainly seen things that are much worse, and that there are reasons to watch this movie. I think if you like Felissa Rose, or Linnea Quigley's not in much of this movie, she's in like one scene, but if you're into any of the actors that are involved in this movie, that's probably a good enough reason to just watch it and enjoy it for that reason. But it's not all that different from a lot of other low budget independent type movies. And unless you're a fan of low budget independent movies that are made on the cheap, you're probably not going to have a great time with it. But like I said, hey, at least they throw in Tracy Lear for me. I mean, she's not exactly the kind of woman I go for, but hey, I appreciate titties.
I do think she was probably one of the most pointless characters in the movie, but and to be fair, we didn't even talk about the detectives, the park rangers, which is probably for the bother.